Welcome to the Consciously Inspired Minds podcast, where we ditch the default and live life by design. I'm your host, Brandy White, personal growth enthusiast, entrepreneur, and lifestyle coach. I host conversations with creators, entrepreneurs, healers, and educators committed to living a life of truth, intention, and connection. Understanding how to evoke their higher nature, our guests take us on a journey of what it means to embody a life of conscious inspiration, joy, impact, and service. Get ready to be inspired. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Consciously Inspired Minds. I have a really fun guest on today. I have Nina Fraley. Hey, Nina, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So good to see you today. All right, everybody. So this episode is coming in great timing. I actually just recorded an episode on mental health with Tanya Schaefer. So this kind of goes hand in hand with that. And so Nina is a young professional who decided to ditch social media. And I just wanted to take a moment to welcome Nina onto the show and really share my gratitude in her being here and showing up in this way and being so open and honest around her journey of ditching social media and what that's meant to her and how that's impacted her life. So why did you have such an interest in coming on the show today to talk about the importance of ditching social media?
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me. I feel like it's very interesting. I'm at an age where I feel like it's hard to say, oh, I have something to say that's going to be important to people because I'm still trying to figure things out for myself. I'm starting to get to a point of realizing, too, that nobody has it figured out, no matter what age they are, no matter where they are in their life. Everybody's just at different stages, different points of their life. So it's okay to talk about your perspective of the world, even if it doesn't feel like you completely understand the world itself or where you're meant to be in it. And it's okay to be in that limbo stage because I think a lot of times in my life and in a lot of my friends' lives, we talk about the fact that it feels like you always are trying to be somewhere else. You're trying to hit the next goalpost, hit the next thing in life. And it's okay to exist in between. And that's part of my journey with releasing social media as well. It's okay to be in between things. So even though it feels like, oh, she's young, what is she going to add to the conversation? It's okay to put yourself out there. Hey, I've had this experience and it profoundly changed the way I carry myself. And maybe it will do that for other people too and share that story. So yeah.
And I love that so much. And you say so many important things there. And when you say you coming onto this show and really showing up for yourself and showing up for all of our listeners and being so real and honest about your experience with social media. And I'm so excited to get into that. It's giving others the permission to do the same. And so you being brave enough to be here and talk through what that experience has been like for you. And in so many not so great ways, right? Which led you to the idea and the motivation to ditch the social media and to really focus on your well-being.
I just wanted to touch on something you said there too. I always love to touch on this topic because my degree is in stage combat, choreography, stunt doubling, all that stuff. And a lot of people will say to me, you're so brave. I shaved my head in college and people will be like, you're so brave. And I think what's really important is that to remember that, I don't know, when people say you're brave, it almost makes it feel like you're saying to other people, that's hard to do. And it's not hard to do things that you're not scared to do. So just because somebody else is doing something and you're like, oh, that would be hard for me, I'm scared to do that. It doesn't make them special or different or brave. You could do that too. It's okay to try because I feel like bravery puts in this perspective of it. It's a box of, oh, well, they're brave, so they can do those things and I can't do those things. And it's like, I'm actually scared all the time to do all sorts of things. And it's okay to try those things and it doesn't it's okay for you to try those things too.
I love that so much. I love this idea around, it kind of reminds me of the same thing when we say, oh, she's so creative or he's so creative. And it's like, well, we're all creative. We are all brave. We all have this within ourselves. It's just how are we tapping into it? And how are we inspiring other people to tap into it for themselves? And how are we giving them maybe tips and tools on how to do that? Because sometimes we need other people to kind of build that confidence within ourselves. So I think this leads me to the question we always kick off with, Nina, which is a little bit about your childhood and maybe even where some of this bravery ignited within you as a little girl. So tell us a little bit about your childhood and how that's sort of connecting the dots for you today.
Oh man, I don't even know where to start. It's a lot. So I think I've always been a child that speaks their mind. I've always been somebody that puts myself out there. And as a young girl, people didn't respond very well to that. I always got along with everybody. My mom would joke that I would make friends with people in the Golden Corral bathroom. You put me anywhere and I'd make a friend. It didn't matter if they were 5 or if they were 85. I would have conversations with her friends where they're like, this is your child. She's talking to me like she's a grown adult person. I just saw everybody as the same. I didn't see the difference between the old people and the young people and things like that. I just treated everybody the way that, I don't know, I just treated everybody equally, I guess. And I don't mean to say that as a #woke 26-year-old, but it's just like how I was as a child. And even to this day, I'll talk to the person sitting next to me on the airplane. And I think the first time I'd speak to them, they're always like, oh, so the stranger next to me is speaking to me. And then usually we end up having a wonderful conversation by the end of it. So I've just been that way ever since I was little. I grew up with a lot of different people. My parents were very busy. My mom worked full time and went to school to get her master's while I was little. My dad was working. My grandparents helped raise me, but I was a lot as a kid. So they had a nanny that would help raise me, and she had foster kids. My grandfather we'll touch on him, I'm sure, later. He was very successful. So I had this very successful side, and then I had all of these foster kids, and I'm seeing the lives that they come from. My dad's family were immigrants. So I have the immigrant side of my family, and then my mom was fully adopted. I was always around different sorts of people of different backgrounds. One of the things I learned growing up that was very, very important was everybody has problems. Nobody has it figured out, and it's okay. Just because you don't have as worse of an issue as somebody else has in their life, it's okay to feel the way that you feel regarding those things. Because it's, oh, if I'm having a bad day or something happened at school, I would beat myself up a little bit about feeling those things because I'm surrounded with these foster kids who don't even have their own family to live with. How could I dare to have issues in the world that we live in? And it's okay to feel those things and to have those feelings while also acknowledging that there are harder things and harder people, because you're still a person, you still feel those things, and that's okay. So it's more about acknowledging the way that you feel while also acknowledging the life and path that other people are on as well. And if you have the privilege to be able to have more joy and freedom, to be able to provide that more to other people and to share that as much as you can, you never know what a good conversation, a good smile, a wave in a hallway could change somebody's day.
Going back to you as a younger child, it sounds like there was always this deep desire for you to connect with others, just always finding this connection and connecting almost two different worlds. Also, when you speak of the diversity in your childhood and having witnessed success and what that can potentially look like and feel like, and it being so close to you, but then also witnessing the lives of these foster kids and maybe some compassion there for them not having what you had.
I think it also goes the other way too. I think it also shows that success doesn't always mean happy. And
Okay.
having hardship doesn't always mean that you're angry and sad all the time too. It's both of those things. We can feel all of these things simultaneously, and that it's okay. There's hardship and there's joy in everyone's life at every stage of their life. So whether you have success, whether you don't have success, it's okay. That's just how life is. It's about the way that you step forward and the way that you carry yourself and how you affect the world around you. That matters more than anything else.
And I think that's so true. I think a lot of times we've talked about this on other episodes as well, is we're so inclined to look outside of ourselves for the joy, for the peace, for the happiness, because this is how society has kind of programmed us to be, is to acquire things and to have things. And your ability to be able to reflect on this in the way that you do is really beautiful. And the fact that you are able to shine awareness on how joy and harmony and happiness can be in so many different places in life and show up for us in so many different areas and phases, no matter what our circumstances are. How can we continue to get grounded within ourselves and get back closer to our authentic self that will allow us to really thrive in life in a way that feels aligned to who we truly are. That then the output of that is the joy, the peace. I am curious though, when you said that you were a lot as a kid, tell me more about that. What does that mean to you, that you were a lot?
Yes, yeah. So how do I even describe this? Sam likes to say that I have an intense personality.
Okay. And tell us who Sam is.
Sam is my fiance.
Okay.
Related to Brandy. So that is how I ended up here today.
Yes. So Sam is my nephew.
Yes.
And he and Nina got engaged and are going to be married next September.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. And your little girls are going to be in our wedding. I'm very excited.
So fun.
So yeah, Sam likes to say I have an intense personality. That is very true. I'm not afraid to speak my mind. My mom says I project. I just speak kind of loudly. But when I was younger, I think I spoke with more of a wild freedom. I just didn't really hold back, I was loud and I always spoke my mind and I was not afraid to speak my mind. And as I get older, I think one of the things that I have worked on is being more cognizant of other people's voices and making sure that I'm not speaking over others and that I'm doing better at listening. You're in this world where I speak from a woman's perspective, so I don't speak for everybody, but in my own personal experience, a lot of times as a young woman, you get told to be less for others and you fit into all of these other boxes. And I think even as a young child, I always kind of pushed against that. There's a balance between being confident and carrying yourself with confidence and being true to your authentic self, while also giving space to allow others to be that too. So it was something that I had to work on, but I definitely think that that is something that I was as a child, just very boisterous, very loud, this is who I am. And if you don't like it, that's kind of not on me. I liked to speak up for others and the people around me, especially the kids I grew up with. They would always talk about how they felt like they didn't have a voice, and I wanted to help be that voice. I used to get into a lot of trouble because I would talk to strangers all the time. And my mom's like, you're going to get kidnapped. Like, I literally would just go up to Randy in a park and I would just have conversations with full grown adults. My mom's like, you need to stop doing this. She did used to say I was very curious. I was that kid that would always ask why. There are secrets in the world. And I always want to know why things are the way they are. How are things the way they are? My mom used to joke that if I was ever kidnapped, they'd bring me back because I'd ask them too many questions.
That's cute. And scary all at the same time.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this was just part of your human design, Nina. It just sounds like this is how you decided to show up in the world when you did, and just part of your being and who you are and how you shine your light It's almost an art of the way we communicate and learning how we do that and how we can make the most impact in the world in the way that we're communicating. And it sounds like you've been working on tailoring that skill for yourself, not just you communicating with others, but also from listening, how you're taking that listening and finding deeper connection with people and then probably making bigger impact and making deeper connections.
There's this video game that's been around for a really long time, The Sims, where you build people and they have little communities. And when I used to play that, I always used to give my people the highest charisma because I felt like that was my strongest thing in my life. Sometimes I struggled with understanding, or I wasn't super athletic or the most creative or most this or most that. But I always felt like I could get through almost any relationship or situation through communication and talking with people. And I was fortunate and privileged enough to have a very diverse childhood with a lot of different people from different life backgrounds has allowed me to have the empathy to be able to reach out and touch other people, which is what ended up getting me into sales in the first place with my career too, because I love people. There's so many forms of communication. Human beings are very interesting in the way that they communicate with each other. It's what makes us the apex that we are, because we communicate at such a higher level than any other creatures within our realm of knowledge. When I was a kid, I used to want to be a motivational speaker. I communicated so well with other people. Part of me probably was, oh, look, everybody's looking at them. Like, they have the center of attention. I think it's also, they just felt powerful, important. So I always loved that aspect of it, even as a kid.
And I love there's three things that you had mentioned here that I think are really going to reveal themselves in our conversation today. And that is your ability for empathy. It's so funny because when I was having a conversation with a professional clinical counselor on mental health, we were talking about social media, and she was saying how she has seen in her practice such a lack of empathy. And so I'll be interested to talk more about that with you today. But then you had mentioned your love for people, and that is just so evident. I mean, whenever I'm in your space, there's this enthusiasm, there's this love, there's this desire to connect and to truly be with those around you and to get to know those around you. And it's almost like, Nina, because you've had this life experience and all of this diversity, it's like you have this capacity within yourself to be a bridge for humanity, which is such a beautiful role in life, to be able to see diversity and where there might be a need to bridge different cultures, different communities together in order to find more harmony, balance, peace, love, and life.
I think because I feel like we moved a lot. My parents, my dad works with construction, building homes and things like that. So they would buy a home, he would renovate it, they would resell it, and we would move. So I was always in different places, and I felt like I was constantly reaching out for that stability, friendships, and things like that. And I felt like my closest friends were my cousin, who is the same age as me, my other closest friend, who I am still friends with. We've actually been friends for now 23 years. Her name is Marie. We met on Easter. She came over. She was 4. I was 3. She stole all the Easter eggs, and we've been best friends ever since.
Yeah.
She's actually getting married 2 weeks before me.
Oh, wow.
We almost see each other as family. She went all of my family vacations, but still she wasn't in my day-to-day. So reaching out to try to find out where I fit in the world, because I felt connected with all of these different people from all of these different backgrounds, but I didn't feel like I resided in any of them myself. So it's like a drifting spirit almost. And I always was told that by a lot of kids my age that I was too loud or too much. And so I started gaining this self-image of somebody that is annoying or a burden or a lot. I was making people uncomfortable in social circles that didn't experience those things in life. But then I come from a place of privilege with the people that have experienced those things in life. So I was never truly in one of those, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I love how you say sort of this wandering spirit. What would your advice be to someone who may come to you and feel the same way that you did, or maybe even sometimes still do, in the way of feeling too much?
Yeah, there is that balance of making sure that you're listening, making sure that you're giving other people space to exist in their most authentic selves too. But I think the biggest thing is acknowledging that you're not going to be for everybody and that that is okay, that you're going to be for the right people. You'll find your people. There's so many people in the world. And if it takes some time to find those people, it'll be worth it when you do. Never stop being your authentic self, because you do bring something to the table. You will have joy and authenticity in life. As a kid, when you're feeling like you don't belong, there's such a big world out there. And it just means that it's just not your season and that you'll find it. It'll come. It took me until I was about 23 years old to really feel like I finally found people that understood. So it definitely comes. There's no point in having fake people around, because I did that for a while. I pushed myself down into a box and I was like, well, this is what's expected. This is how everybody else is. I'm just going to kind of play along, because you want to be part of the group. But if that's not who you are, then it's never going to feel right. And other people are going to see it too. And it won't feel authentic, because if their authentic selves fit into this group and yours don't, you're going to be sticking out a little bit like a sore thumb. And it's okay to try to make relationships with people as yourself.
Yeah. And as you said so beautifully, it's all about the seasons of life. And it's this constant evolution of discovering more about who we are and where we want to be and our place in the world and how we want to show up and whose energy we want to be in and whose energy we want to share in our time and space with. The sense of belonging is always so loud in our culture. We want to feel part of the tribe. We don't want to get kicked out. So we're always fearful of, what do we have to do to not get kicked out? It's just those survival instincts. So being able to really break away from the fear of that and stepping into who you truly are. And then, as you said, even if it takes more time to cultivate that community that really aligns with who you are and allows you to be fully expressed.
Yeah.
There's nothing more fulfilling than that, which I think this is an amazing segue into your desire to ditch social media. Take us through what was happening in your mind, in your life, in your well-being when you decided to step away from social.
Yeah. So I just want to touch on one thing really quick.
Please. Yes.
And go into that when talking about like the seasons of life and feeling you want to fit in and things are difficult. The people that you might end up being friends with that might be people that weren't going to be your friends before too. People change, people grow, people evolve. They have different seasons as well. So if you feel like you don't get along with people, it might just be the season of life they're in too. It might not have anything to do with you and everything to do with them. They see that you are somebody that is different, and that scares them because they are trying to fit into a box too. So there are seasons, and sometimes the people that you are friends with are people that eventually are people you have to remove from your life because they aren't growing in the same direction as you. And that's difficult, but it's very important. If you're not being surrounded by people that are helping you grow and thrive, then it might be time for a new season too. And understanding that and coming to terms with that and accepting that. I've had to remove quite a few friends in my life, and they're still great people, but they just weren't looking for the same things in life that I was looking for.
And it doesn't make it right or wrong, right? It doesn't make it right or wrong. It just makes it not the right time.
Yep. So I just think that's important too for people that are feeling that way to see that side too. So ditching social media. Yeah. So I was already involved in social media. I was a personal trainer for a little bit. I had a fitness account. So very much involved in social media. And I would use it almost like a crutch. It's so I build my business, or it's so that I can put my fitness videos out so that I can grow my business and things like that, which social media does have a lot of opportunities for things like that. But I think that I was using that as a mask for the way that it was actually making me feel, and for not acknowledging that. Anytime I would feel a certain way about it, I would just be like, well, I'm using it for this, so it's fine that I keep it. What most people talk about is the social comparison. But honestly, one of the biggest things for me was where I was feeling very disconnected with the people around me. I wasn't taking care of myself as much as I was supposed to. Last year was a very difficult season. My parents moved to Florida. My brother joined the army. My fiance and I bought a house. I quit my job and was supposed to start a new job. And then they put me on this hiatus where I was waiting for training to start. So there was a few months where I didn't have work. My grandmother had hip surgery, and then she never got up, and she passed away. So that was October. She had surgery. December, she passed away. I would spend all day with her because she couldn't move. She couldn't do anything. None of my other family's in town. So I would spend all day with her. And then at 8 p.m., I would drive to my new house and I would paint the walls until 3 a.m. And then I would drive back to the apartment that we were still renting, and I would sleep. And then I'd wake up and I'd drive to her house. And I didn't have the time to take care of myself. And then on the days that I did, I was just so exhausted, and I was spending every free moment scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling because it was just an escape from everything else going on. And I gained a lot of weight, and I was just struggling a lot with my relationships. I was becoming angry and irritable and unfair to the people around me. And then when she passed, a lot of that was on my shoulders too. My parents weren't here. I was in the room. I had to make sure that we called the people to come get her body. I had to clean up everything. I had to prepare her house to sell it. I helped run all the funeral stuff as well. So it's kind of a lot. And then I started my new job in January. We were still paying mortgage and for our rental until March because they wouldn't break lease. So
stressful.
Money was extremely tight. There wasn't really space to mourn, space to grieve. So it's just kind of a very difficult season of my life. And then 6 months into my new job, they had layoff in July. So I had to find a new job, which I got a new job 2 weeks after I lost that job, but they had a training program thing that I had to wait for too. It's very common, I feel like, in sales, especially like the recruiting space. But we started 3 weeks ago. So I feel like I'm finally hitting a point where I can get back to the best version of me. When she got sick, terminal failure to thrive is what she was diagnosed with. When she passed away, she went backwards through her recovery because she wasn't moving. She wasn't seeing people. She would keep the curtains closed. So I think she just was becoming more and more depressed. And so witnessing that, watching that, going through that process with her, she does not do anything that she does not want to do. I probably get that from her and my mother. They're very similar in that regard. I was struggling with my mental health, my physical health. I was gaining a lot of weight, and I was like, you know what? Being on social media is making me worse. I'm already going through a lot internally, and every time I'm on there, I just feel exhausted, constantly comparing myself to other people.
In what ways? Comparing just...
So even if somebody looks successful, even if somebody looks like they have it all together, nobody has it figured out. Yeah. Nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody's just kind of winging it. The successful people are the people that do it anyway, are the people that push themselves to those uncomfortable boundaries and try new things, even if they don't have it figured out. A lot of people are scared to leave the limbo of the in-between. A great example is people that want to lose weight. I want to buy that dress. It would be so cute, but I'm going to wait until I'm a smaller size to buy it. I'm going to hold myself back from dressing cute and being fashionable because I want to be this other size. So when I'm there, I'll do it. Or once I have more success, then I'll try this new thing. It's just people are constantly saying, well, once I'm there. And it's, well, then you're not living now. You're not doing the things that you want and that you crave for yourself. You're putting stipulations on it, and life is chaotic.
It's just like this conditional happiness. Once this happens for me, then I can feel. As opposed to saying, right now I can choose and decide to feel sexy, happy, joyful, and then kind of leaning into that feeling and not having to wait to feel a certain way and allowing something outside of ourselves.
There's this great saying in the acting world, especially in the improv space. You'll hear a lot of people say, fake it till you make it. But with improv, it's very, very similar of just show up and do it and yes and yourself. And they call it yes anding yourself to success. So, okay, I want to be famous. What are you going to do that? When I'm famous, I'll do this. When I'm famous, I'll do that. Well, put yourself out there. If you're constantly thinking about the future, but you're not doing anything to get yourself to that future, then you're never going to realize the future. You're always going to be wanting and wishing and waiting. You don't have to live in that space. Where are the things that make you feel confident now? Live your life and things will come to fruition.
Right. Because once you're in that energy space, once you're feeling more confident, then you're attracting that confidence more into your life. Meet yourself where you are. What is going to make you feel the way you want to feel right now, as opposed to being so self-critical and so judgmental of ourselves? How can we give ourselves more self-love?
Yeah.
What I'm really curious about, Nina, is there's so many things that if we stop and just take a pause, what those benefits of releasing social media could be. To your point, we stop comparing ourselves. We start to feel greater gratitude for the quote unquote real people in our lives. We feel less angry, as you were talking about earlier. I'm so frustrated and I'm not feeling good about myself, and I'm doom scrolling just to kind of escape my own thoughts. Another benefit would be your productivity increases.
Yep.
So because we're not spending all the time on social, how are we leaning into more of the things that we love to do? What are our hobbies? Do we like to journal? Do we like to spend time in nature? What is that for yourself? Do we want to work out more? Do we want to sleep more?
Yeah.
And so they also talk about this thing around, we feel important on social media around our birthdays or when big events are happening, and we have random folks reaching out to us, wishing us happy birthday, congratulating us on our success. But that can only go so far when these folks who are reaching out are more acquaintances or just social connections versus relationships that we have. What does that really mean for ourselves? And then lastly, it's this ability to gain perspective and self-awareness when we're disconnected from social media. And this is what I've seen. And you've always had this about you anyway, Nina, is this really deep, profound awareness, which blows my mind every time I talk to you. And I'm sure all of our listeners are capturing that too. But how are we able to take a break from social media and then spend the time with ourselves, asking us what our deepest desires are, what are our values? And I'd love to hear more about, because in this show as well, I always like to focus on solutions. So I know that a lot of folks are on social because 70% of us get on there because it's that dopamine hit. Right?
Yep.
It's like you get on, you get the comment, people like what you're posting, and it feels good. All right. So from this place, take me through how you were able to overcome the desire to just get back on social when you're in those moments of not feeling great. You just want that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And how you were able to refrain. And then how you sustain that and how that's brought benefit to your life.
Yeah. So I guess I should say that I've technically been on social for over a year now.
Okay.
I still have Pinterest, but that's a little different. You're not talking to people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I mostly use that for work outfits or things like that. Setting timers is really helpful. If you're somebody that's like, I want less social media, but I'm not comfortable completely cold turkeying it.
Mm-hmm.
You can set timers on your phone on limiting the amount of time that you spend on it, and it'll pop up on your screen when you're scrolling. It'll be like, hey, your time limit is up.
I've heard that there are apps.
You don't even need an app. If you have iPhone, you can go into settings.
Oh, okay.
In settings, if you are an iPhone user. I don't know about Android, but for me, I was in such a place of turmoil and chaos that I'm going to give myself 2 weeks of just no social media. And I just set that goal for myself.
What was the moment that happened for you? What was the moment that you had that thought of, you know what, this is it. Enough's enough.
I was really going through it, and I am a big reader. I love to read. Typically romance, fantasy, stuff like that, but I'm also...
Spill it, girl. Spill it. Yeah.
I'm not going to lie about who I am.
No, yeah.
I also am a huge reader of self-help books, self-development books. Have you read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear?
I have not.
So highly recommend to you, get a hard copy. Just trust me. It's an amazing book. It has changed the way I carry myself. The CEO of my company, it's one of his favorite books too.
Okay. We'll put that in the show notes.
The whole premise is building habits and breaking habits and how to do that. And he starts small. So just touching a little bit on the few things that he said. And the reason I get into this is because it's one of the reasons why I decided to ditch social media as well. I was at my house painting and I was exhausted. I was like, I'm going to go home and lay down. And I got in bed. And you know when your body is exhausted, but your brain is just going.
Sure do. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm just going to read a couple pages of my book and hopefully that will help me fall asleep. And while I've been wanting to start this book on habits, I'm going to read that. And I picked it up and I literally could not put it down. I read it as a binge read and I finished it in 3 days because it was just so insightful. And one of the things it talks about, because I was feeling so drained and gross and I could see myself not taking care of myself and I wasn't doing anything about it, because especially folks with ADHD like I have, you can see the things that you need to do to take care of yourself, but you physically cannot force yourself to do them. The key is to start really, really small. And one of the things he talks about is if you want to change where you are in life or the way you carry yourself in life, if you want a new identity for yourself, you have to start with the identity, not the habit. If you want to lose weight, if you want to be healthier, you can't just be, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds. Instead, look at yourself and be like, I identify as a healthy person. I am a healthy person. So then when you are faced with decisions, it's not, I'm trying to lose weight. It's, what would a healthy person do? And I was sitting there and I was reading this book and I want to be a healthy person. I want to be a successful person. That is who I want to be. A healthy, successful person wouldn't spend over 7 hours a day scrolling on social media. So I went on my phone. It was 4 a.m. and I deleted the app from my phone.
Wow.
Like, nope, they're gone.
You went all in.
I fully deleted the apps. Yeah. I didn't just, I had TikTok, Instagram, all of them. And I actually went into TikTok, deleted my profile as well as the app. On Instagram, I made everything private and then I deleted the app because I figured there's going to be seasons of my life when I get married or when I have kids that I'm going to want to share those with family. So they'll still have me on there. So I didn't want to delete the profiles for that sake, but I don't need it on my app right now. I'm not in a season of my life that I even feel confident posting anything myself. I don't need this distraction. I have enough going on. And then after 2 weeks, I didn't miss it. I was waking up earlier. I was going to bed sooner. I had built a nighttime routine where I was getting home by a certain hour, washing my face, reading a few chapters, not on my phone, sleeping throughout the night better because I wasn't on my phone all night. I was waking up earlier. I was working out in the morning. I was feeling more productive. And I still had a lot going on. I still didn't feel like I was the healthiest version of me, but it felt like a weight had lifted off my shoulders because I felt like I had more hours in the day.
And it's almost like this was you creating evidence for yourself that you were showing up for you.
Yep.
This was you taking one of those small steps toward identifying yourself as someone who values her health. And the first step to that was releasing social.
Yeah.
And you just had so much conviction in that. And I think that's where we get into trouble, is when we don't have conviction for the things we want to accomplish and do in life. We can dabble, but until we actually commit and decide, that's when the rubber meets the road. And that's when we start to show up for ourselves. And that's when we start to provide evidence to ourselves that we're showing up for us, nobody else, but we're showing up for us. And then things start to flow when we're then aligning to our deepest desires and listening to that call within us. Something isn't feeling right. Something's feeling off. What is that? What do I need to adjust? What do I need to edit? What do I need to fix here? What do I need to tweak? Paying attention. And then it's the energy of life just starts to flow, and things will come in that will serve you better. And it comes down to trust also. So in that 2 weeks that you completely let it go, had you thought about, I want to get back on, and then kind of held back? Or were you so convicted at that point, you're just like, nope, don't even care? Because I've experienced both in different areas of my life where I'm like, it's a hard hell no, and I know it, and I'm not looking back. And then other things I'm like, do I want to go back? It's calling my name.
Yeah. So for me personally, I didn't even think about it, but I also had a lot going on.
Sure.
So it's not like I really had a lot of free time anyway.
Yeah.
When I was feeling better because I was sleeping more, and I didn't even have the space to think about anything. So I didn't use my phone very much at all. I was listening to books and podcasts and music, but I wasn't really doing a lot of stuff on my phone. So it was easier for me. However, I think one of the reasons I was feeling that way, despite being so busy and stuff, I don't even know if I would call it conviction. There's another podcast that I really like to listen to called Mind Pump. It's a health and fitness podcast.
Okay.
And one of the things that they like to talk about for people that want to lose weight, for people that want to be healthy, changing the way that you speak to yourself is very important. And when you're with friends, and if you're trying to be healthy or trying to lose weight, if there's a pizza or something, the difference between I don't want that and I can't have that are drastically different. And it changes the way you speak to yourself. And some people might be, well, Nina, what if I want the pizza? What if I do want the pizza? Okay, well, then you make that decision. And if you really want it and you feel like this is building memories with the people around you, this has some other value that it provides to me, I feel like that's a decision for your healthy self that you're making. But if you are trying to be healthy and you're like, I want more energy, I want to feel better, will eating that provide you that outcome? And if not, then you don't want it. It's making those decisions that way. And I kind of treated the social media like that. What is it providing for me? What is it going to do for me if I go on there? I don't want that, so I don't crave it. It's more of filling the gaps with things that I do want. So when I was really craving it, I go for a walk, get some fresh air, do something else, distract yourself. And then also speaking to yourself in I don't want that. I don't need that. It's not something that's going to provide something for me. And I'm in a season of my life where I'm only trying to do things that are going to give as much as I give. So if I'm pouring energy into something, I want it to provide energy back to me, or it's a waste of my energy.
Yeah, I think language is so important. There's so many times where we can catch ourselves saying, I can't do that. I can't do this. Well, no, you're choosing not to. And you mentioned something really important here too, around this idea of well-being and setting goals for yourself and stepping into this new identity. And at the end of the day, we're all trying to reach a destination of how we want to feel through the goals that we set for ourselves. It's never about the thing. It's never about the goal. It's always about the feeling we're going to get when we reach the goal or something of our deepest desire. So going back to what you were saying, how do we want to feel? Continuing to check in with yourself daily, like, how do I want to feel? And a best practice that was once shared with me from a mentor was, let's choose 3 words. Let's choose 3 words, and you can Google, get online, find some empowering word banks. What are 3 words in which I want to feel? How do I want to feel on a daily basis? For me, it was abundant, lighthearted, and radiant. I then got online, researched 3 images that married up to those words for me. So finding an image that makes me feel radiant, that makes me feel lighthearted, that makes me feel abundant. Posted those up in my office where I spend so much time. And whenever I'm in a moment of feeling low or in doubt or just down on myself, I look at those images and I'm like, wow, am I feeling those things? No, I'm not. Okay, what can I do right now that gets me back into feeling abundant? Even if it's something small, even if it's sending a text message to a friend telling her how much I love her. How do I get back to that feeling? And I think it's such a beautiful practice. So on a tangent there about the feeling, but this lends itself to why we're on social media. It's because we're reaching for a feeling. We want to feel a certain way and think that seeking outside of ourselves, looking on social media is going to get us to that feeling. Well, we need to do that for ourselves and nurture ourselves in a way that feels authentic and real for us. And I really just also want to celebrate you for being a leader in your own life, because that's what it is. And you say how leadership is so important to you, and it's always been very big in your life. And you being a leader and showing up for you is a great way to be a role model and mentor for others, to show up for themselves and to be leaders in their own lives. So I think that that's really beautiful.
First of all, when it comes to leadership, I have a big thing in my life is servant leadership.
Yeah.
There's no point in trying to be a leader and trying to guide people if you are being a servant as well. So being aware of that, and that's how I was raised. My grandfather was servant leadership. It's okay to want to be a leader and to want to step into that role and to be a servant. You can do both, and it makes you a better leader. The other thing you touched on was your mood board that you have, and being able to find those 3 things. And I think for me and a lot of young people my age, and even my sister is younger as well, she's 21. She really struggles with, who am I? Who am I? Who do I want to be? And it's really hard to find grounding and to find purpose when you don't even know who you are. And that was really difficult for me. Lots of long nights, lots of tears. I crave stability. I crave figuring out where I want to be in life. And at the same time, I don't want to miss out on the season of life that I'm in. And I want to be able to go out with friends and do fun things and not always constantly be worried about where am I trying to be? Where am I trying to go? Who am I trying to be? And it's this hard space of not even knowing where to start. And meditation was good for my ADHD and things like that. But I was never sitting there being like, oh, I'm one with the universe. I know who I am.
Yeah.
And I would pick things, but they felt like I was picking things to pick things. That's the core. And it wasn't until this year where I really figured out my why and who I want to be and where I want to go. And I think for listeners, anybody that's younger or anybody that's in a new season of their life where you're trying to figure this out, it's okay to not know. It's actually, you can have fun on the journey figuring it out. And the core of it, in the way to find those things, because I think it's really important. You listen to podcasts and books and they talk about know who you are, find your why, find your core. Well, how? How do I do that? And as somebody that just recently figured it out for myself, the best thing to do is to spend time with yourself and figure out what brings me relief. What is going to make me happy? I spent a lot of years barely paying bills, scraping by, and having a bill come out of my bank account and not being scared about feeding myself the next day brings me relief. It brings me ease. It eases the stress of life a little bit. And so I'm like, okay, that's going to be one of the things in the core of my why. And my why might change, and that's okay. But as of right now, having stability and not being stressed about paying bills and things like that makes the rest of life a little bit easier for me. The world is in a crazy place. How can I make it feel like I am mentally okay in it. And for me, it's stability and it's consistency and it's taking care of myself and the people around me. And as long as I'm doing those things, then I'm fulfilling my purpose and my why. And it doesn't have to be this crazy exuberant thing like, oh, I want to change the world or I want to make millions of dollars. It's okay to have those big goals and those big dreams. But if you make it too big, if you overthink it, if you make it too crazy, it's going to get lost in the sauce.
Yeah, just starting out small. How do we want to feel? Where are we headed? Spending time with ourselves, because to your point, there are so many distractions in life, and social media is another place of heavy, heavy distraction. We are on this quest, especially I remember in my 20s and even in my 30s, I was on this quest of just wanting to figure it all out. Like right now, because I was in this fear of not living the life that I desired. And how do I make sure I can make that happen for myself? So the best piece of advice now being in my 40s is to spend time with yourself, reflecting on what are your values? How do you want to feel? How do you want to show up for yourself? And how do you want to show up for the people in your life? Because we are not going to find the answers on social media. I promise you that.
A lot of people will do that. Like I grew up where it was that transition from no social right into social.
Right.
So I had an iPod shuffle,
Right.
listening to music growing up, and then I had an iPhone. So remembering the transition through all of that, especially in the very beginning, and going through my 20s and my teens on social media and trying to figure out who I am and trying to figure out my whys and getting muddled in how other people project themselves on social media and being like, I want to be thin and hot and have a lot of money. That's what I'm going to do, the things they do to try to get those things. Your why doesn't have to be what everybody else's is. Your journey getting there is going to be different than other people's.
And that's the beauty in it, is that the journey is always unique, which is amazing. And then, like, who doesn't want an amazing story to tell later in life?
Right.
Yeah, we don't want to copy paste somebody else's story.
Nursing would be very boring.
Right. Yes, exactly. All right, Nina. So let's fast forward a year. And as you look back and you're like, damn, I'm so glad I made this choice. What's happened for you? What's different for you? How can you share with us the evidence of releasing social media?
For me, I feel like I have more hours in the day. I feel more connected with the people around me, especially Sam. It's just easier because before we would sit on the couch and both be on our phones in completely different worlds, you know, and now it feels like we're actually doing things together. It feels like we have more time together. It has improved our relationship. It has caused me to reach out to people more. I'm not on Instagram scrolling or talking to strangers. I'm messaging my friends that I know, and I'm scheduling girls' nights, and we're going out with our friends, and it's gotten me more active with the people in my life that matter, that see you for who you are. And that's really important. And you're not constantly looking at pictures of yourself and photos of yourself and comparing yourself. As somebody that was heavy, lost a lot of weight, gained a lot of weight, tried to get back to healthy, constantly being on social media and seeing my own photos isn't that great for me. So it has allowed me to be more kind to myself mentally, because I spent a lot of years being very hard on myself. And I think it has finally allowed me the ability to love myself regardless of the way that I look. And I think that that was something that I craved for a really long time and would pretend to be that way and be like, yeah, I love myself. Yeah, but I would spend so many nights crying and being frustrated and sad. And now when I look at myself and I'm maybe a heavier weight, instead of being mad or sad or angry with myself, instead I'm able to look at myself and be like, you aren't taking care of yourself.
Taking personal responsibility for it too.
Yeah. And it's a different type of acknowledgement of being like, oh, well, you're fat and ugly, instead of you deserve to take care of yourself, to feel healthy. You deserve these things. start doing them for yourself. And the weight loss, the body image stuff will come later. Those are more of a means to an end versus actually having the process in the life, looking at yourself in the mirror and being like, a healthy person wouldn't sit here and bash themselves. They would look at themselves and they would say, I love you. Please start taking care of yourself, which is what you would say to somebody else that you love. So you should start speaking to yourself that way too. And social media was keeping me from doing that. And getting rid of it has allowed me to have that dialogue with myself, because I spend more time with myself and comparing myself to my actions versus comparing myself to other people.
Oh, I love that so much. Nina, you are a beautiful young lady, to say the least. And I'm so grateful for you being here today. And I'm really proud of you. And I hope that you're really proud of you too. I'm really curious. All of this knowledge that you have and all of this light that you're sharing with us, what are some relationships in your life that have contributed to where you are today?
Yeah, every single relationship I've ever had.
Yeah.
I think the way that you carry yourself through life and the memories that you have in life are the foundation of you. I have had a lot of people in my life pass away. I've seen a lot of death even from a young age. The first person I have seen pass away in my family was when I was 11. And I was with foster kids whose parents had overdosed. I was very aware of death from a very young age, which has very much been foundational blocks, I feel like, for my awareness and just trying to get to where I want to be faster, because I felt like you only have so much time. Like,
Sure.
you have to get there, you have to go. And my grandfather was one of my most foundational people in my life. He was very successful, very kind, always giving back to the community. He was an immigrant. He came over from Germany with his mom around World War II, right at the end of it. His mom came here, and then he went to Procter & Gamble, and he worked his way up all the way to CFO.
Oh, wow.
He was there for 45 years.
Wow.
So he wanted to fly. He wanted to be a pilot, but he's colorblind. So he decided to go into accounting, worked at the Procter & Gamble factories to work his way up while he got his accounting degree. And he said, I only wanted to be successful so I could buy myself a plane. He's like, I want to buy a plane. And he got all the way up to CFO and bought himself a plane, took lessons, and taught himself how to fly.
How inspiring.
Yeah.
How inspiring.
Yeah. And so he was definitely a major foundation for me of reach for what you want. And if there isn't a pathway, make one. There's going to be people that are going to tell you you can't. There's going to be people that are going to hold you back. And it doesn't matter what those people say or what those people think, because they aren't you. And the only person that can truly hold you back is yourself. And if you want something, go and get it, you know? And he was the living, breathing embodiment of that. And he passed away from Alzheimer's. And it's difficult because you're watching somebody who was this amazing light to so many people disappear before you and forget who you are. I used to travel around LA and do spoken word poetry with a tree. And it definitely opened my eyes to, you are your memories. Your memories are the foundation of who you are. And who are you without them? And it really opens your eyes to looking back at your entire life. Every single relationship I've ever had, big, small, little, professional, personal, builds who you are as a person. And so there's no way for you to be the same as everybody else. They don't have all the same people in their lives, relationships, even pets, animals, even memories. Everybody's been through hardship. Everybody's had problems. I have my own fair share of traumas, but it's how you grow through that and the way you allow it to affect you, because you're the only one that can control the way that you handle situations.
I think that's lovely. And as you take us through that, it just brings me back to your inner essence. Just by you releasing social media, it sounds like such kind of a dull example in the grand scheme of what you're really talking about here, because I think what I'm hearing and feeling for me in this conversation was just one step toward getting connected back to your higher nature, into your connection to self, into your connection to nature, into your connection to the world around you, because that's where you like to be. You like to be in deep relationship. You like to embody the life lived, the memories, the soulful, deep connection of life.
I think social media is very shallow. And my grandfather passed away 2018. I didn't release social media until 2022. Watching him go and watching him forget you, and what happens to you when you don't know who you are anymore. It was very shaking of my foundation of self and the world around me. And it forced me to look at the world. When I'm old, all I have are my memories. I don't want to remember scrolling for hours.
Right.
I don't remember strangers and the way that they pose online or the funny cat videos. I want to remember authentic relationships. I want to remember driving in a car with the windows down and singing along to music as loud as we can. I want to remember hiking mountains with my significant other and looking over at the view and feeling small. I want to remember laying in the grass in the backyard with my sister, watching clouds and planes pass overhead. That's what I want. So I need to reconnect with those things.
Right. Beautiful. Beautifully said, Nina. Beautifully said. This has been a pleasure. My heart is full. A few closing questions for you. How do you live a life of truth and intention?
For me, it's seeing the person in front of you when they're in front of you. Sitting on a plane next to somebody who you've never met before. If you're having a conversation, look at that person. See them. Not just, oh yeah, I see you. Like, see them for they're a whole person with a whole nother background and memories that make them the person that they are. And I love having conversations with people where I find out what makes them them, because I think it's so beautiful that we all have such unique stories. And what makes me feel connected to other people is finding out more about them. The guy on the plane next to me on the way to a work trip last week, he was telling me about his kids and telling me about how they love art. And we talked about art and we talked about his family. And I think we both left the plane ride feeling a little more connected and a little more joyous. So interesting for that, because it almost feels like mushrooms in a forest. They're all connected with all of these little lines going through everybody, and they communicate to each other. And I think human beings, because our feet leave the ground, we forget that we're all one thing. One of my friends was telling me about her mother passing from cancer. She was really struggling with that. And it's easy to say, I'm sorry. It's easy to say that's hard, but that's not going to connect with them. One of the things I like to do is I sit there and I say, I see you. I hear you. I'm here and I see you and I hear you and you're valid, and the way that you're feeling is valid. And that is so important to be able to connect with people in that way. So that's the way I like to stay connected, is reminding people that they're grounded and that I can be that for them and I can see them, I can hear them. It doesn't matter if you're in another stage of life than me, I can still hear you and see you.
Right. Like, you matter. You're enough.
Yeah.
I see you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
You're loved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just think that's important.
What do you want your impact to be in the world right now at 26?
Yeah, I know. I feel like I get so caught up in that. I feel like I spend a lot of hours thinking about that and being, how do I want to impact the world? The world is so big. The world is so vast. I'm so small in comparison to the universe and to the people around me. And I think about how I was impacted by people. And I look at those traits. What did they do? How did they manage to impact me?
What a beautiful practice. Yeah.
So what I try to do is I try to cultivate the energy of people who have impacted me in positive ways. And I try to share that with other people. So that's how they're remembered. That's how they live on. That's how their energy was dispersed, is through me acting on the ways that they impacted me. And I think the way you impact people is not with big showy signs of being, this is my success or this is where I was. My grandfather never talked about his success. He never bolstered or bragged. He used his position to help others. He used his voice to make others feel heard. And I think that seeing that and seeing somebody in that position be able to take a step back and be like, I'm small in the universe. Yes, I've had all the success. I've reached these heights that I'm very blessed and fortunate and privileged to be, but I'm small. And to be able to remember that. And I think I'm starting to let go of the idea that I have to make an impact. I don't think I have to. I think I just need to care about the people around me and to make people feel seen and heard. And that's enough.
Right. Beautiful. I love that so much. And it reminds me, I actually had a guest on not too long ago who wrote a book, and it was all about her grandfather as well. And it's called The 5 Poppy Principles, Living Your Life to Leave a Legacy. And it talks all about that and what leaving a legacy means to her and leaving a warm legacy and how we're finding relationship and how when people talk about us when we pass, how are people feeling? How are they emoting? What kind of impact did we make on the lives of the people we love most? So amazing. All right, Nina, last question for you. What does it mean to you to live a consciously inspired life?
Yeah, consciously inspired. I love that. I feel like for me, because I tend to be deep and I tend to be what my mother would call dramatic, I tend to have a lot of emotion a lot of the times, and I allow myself to feel those things. I think it's important to allow yourself to live in those moments and let them pass through you.
Oh, I love that.
That's just very important to me. But I think I get so caught up in, especially as a poet, you get so caught up in these ideals of, you romanticize life a little bit and words and things, and even romanticizing the hardships of life, of, oh, the things that are hard have to be this beautiful wilting rose. It has to be this big thing. And I think for me, consciously inspired is a seed. It's small. It's the little things. I think the biggest thing about life, about being successful, about reaching your goals, about being more conscious of others, it's about taking a step back, not taking a step forward, and looking within and being small and taking small conscious steps. Because if you're not aware, if you're running the marathon and you're just pushing through and you're not thinking, then you're not being conscious. You're on autopilot. And a lot of us live our lives on autopilot. It's harder to stop and to say stop and to take a breath and to look at the world around you, at yourself, at your actions. And even when I'm in an argument or I'm fighting, it's hard. It's hard to take that step back and be true to my authentic self. And the ego, and being able to put the ego aside and be like, I think I'm wrong and I'm sorry. And to be able to do that, and it takes time. We're so used to a world that just goes and goes, and the world flies by you. And next thing you know, you're going from 12 years old, sitting in a canoe on a lake, to 26 years old, working a full-time job. Life just happens so fast. And the only way that you live consciously and able to grow and change and evolve, which is the way that I see inspiration. How can I grow? How can I evolve? How can I change and become this person I want to be, is by taking a step back and going smaller and looking at less. Inside, I feel like we're all just children. So I think it's important to take that step back and to acknowledge that.
Nina, it's so clear that you've really taken the time to be with yourself and to learn more about yourself. And what's so amazing about it also is you have this awareness of a desire for wanting more and this deservancy about life, right? You deserve to have the things and to experience the things, but it's this blissful experience that you're really tapped into that I really want to celebrate you for. Because when I look back at 26, I was not having these thoughts at 26, right? Especially maybe just very high level, but not as deeply and profoundly as you. And I remember this was last Thanksgiving that you and I sat down and really had this really beautiful, deep connection. And I just remember stepping away from that conversation, just really being blown away, thinking, where did this young woman gather all this knowledge so quickly? Because it has taken me 41 years to get here. So I just, again, I appreciate you being here and showing up so vulnerably. And I think that's another piece of the puzzle in how we find connection, is showing up in a vulnerable place. And you've done that. And I know that your words are going to touch the lives of others. And we appreciate you. And thank you for being you.
Thank you. I think a good note for people too, before we close it out, is there's still days where I don't feel like I have it all together. There's dirty dishes sitting in my sink right now. There's dirty laundry that I need to do. I think it's so important when you're looking at other people and you're like, oh, they have this experience, or they have this voice that cuts through the chaos of the way I feel. Nobody has their stuff together. Mm-hmm. And the reason I have the profound feelings that I have now just happens to be I've just been in tune with it since I was a little kid. And it hasn't always been a blessing. Everybody's on their own path. They do their own things. And it doesn't matter how old you are or where you are. It's the fact that you care and the fact that you try and that you want to grow and continue to put yourselves in uncomfortable situations, even though you look at me and this 26-year-old that has this profound understanding and profound knowledge. Well, I look at you and I'm like, look at how successful she is. Look at her beautiful family. That's where I want to be. You have all of this experience underneath you. You are so successful in your career, and yet you're still so kind and caring to people. So that's something I want to emulate. So I think it's so easy to look at other people and be like, look at this thing that they have, instead of being like, look at these values that we share and the things that both of us feel together. I think that that's important too.
Lovely. And again, we are more connected and one than we are separate, and always coming back to that. So beautiful. Well, Nina, thank you so much again for being here. It was such a pleasure. And I cannot wait to talk more wedding details very soon.
Oh my gosh, that's so much.
What an exciting time in life. I know. There's a whole wedding world out there, isn't there? Yeah.
Oh, yes. A whole new last name is going to be a little different, but yes. I really love the family. So I think that it helps a lot too. I love all you guys. So it'll be really cool to be an official member.
It's going to be wonderful. And we love you so much. All right. Nina, I know you're not on social, but where can people find you?
I put my LinkedIn on there because I have that for business. And if somebody wants to get coffee, let's meet in person, let's have a face-to-face. I think that it's really important to be connecting with people in more of a physical way, more mental, in person, because we just lose touch with reality on socials. And you can find somebody on social media and follow them. And then 2 years from now, you're not even going to remember who that person is, but you'll remember sitting down and having a coffee with somebody and really talking about who they are and where they're trying to be. And even if you just want to talk about what you do for a living. I work in recruiting. I love talking about what people do. I think that that's cool. So yeah, if you want to get a coffee, go work out at the gym, go for a walk in the park with the dog, getting in front of people and actually being with people, I think is important. So no social, but let's get coffee.
Let's get coffee. I love it. We'll put a link to her LinkedIn in the show notes. So you guys have that. Beautiful. All right, Nina. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you soon. Until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
That's all for today. Thanks so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. If you'd like to learn more about Consciously Inspired Minds, you can visit us at consciouslyinspiredminds.com. Until we connect again, explore what inspires you.